Chapter 23. The Shell of Existence. My friends, let us talk extensively today about the spiral line of life. Much has been said about the doctrine of transmigration of souls, explained by Lord Krishna in the sacred land of the Vedas, some 1,000 years before Jesus Christ. We have already explained in past talks all these processes of the wheel of samsara. We have said with entire clarity, we have repeated to satiation, that each soul is assigned 108 lives for its inner self-realization. Unquestionably, it is obvious that those who fail during their cycle of manifestation, those who do not achieve self-realization within the number of assigned existences, descend within the submerged mineral kingdom, the Hindu Avicii, the Greek Tartarus, the Roman Avernus. It is plain and evident that involution within the entrails of the planet in which we live is terribly painful. To recapitulate animal-like, vegetable-like, and mineraloid states in a frankly degenerating manner is certainly not very pleasant. We also affirmed in our past talks that after the second death, the essence, what we have of a soul, ascends once again in an evolving manner from the mineral kingdom to the intellectual animal mistakenly called man, passing through vegetable and animal phases. However, there is in this law of transmigration of souls something that we have not said. We have cited the law of eternal return, we have mentioned that other great law known as recurrence. But we should clarify that these two mentioned laws develop and unfold on the spiral line of life. This means that each cycle of manifestation is processed in spirals, each time higher within the great spiral line of the universe. Whichever way one understands this, it is also usually somewhat abstract. As it is, I see myself with the need of clarifying in a better manner, so that everyone can profoundly comprehend the teaching. Upon escaping after the second death, the essence, on coming out once more into the light of the sun, obviously transformed into a gnome, will have to reinitiate a new evolving process, but within a superior octave. This means that such a mineral elemental creature will undoubtedly find itself within the mineral kingdom, with a state of consciousness superior to the one it had when it initiated a similar evolution in the previous cycle of manifestation. On continuing with these explanations, you should not forget that any cycle of manifestation includes evolutions in the mineral, vegetable, animal, and human kingdoms. In the latter we are assigned 108 existences. If we examine a shell, we see a curve upon a curve, something similar to a spiral type of ladder. It is evident that each of those cycles of manifestation develops in curves, which are higher each time. Now you will understand the motive for the great variety of mineral, vegetable, and animal elementals, and for the diverse degrees of intelligence among humans. Unquestionably, the difference is very great between mineral elementals that begin for the first time as mineral elementals, and those who have repeated the same process many times. The same can be said about the vegetable and animal elementals or about humanoids. Since the cycles of manifestation are always 3,000, the last of these is actually found at a very high octave. Those essences that within the 3,000 turns of the wheel do not achieve their mastery, absorb themselves into their virginal spark so as to definitely submerge themselves in the bosom of the universal spirit of life. It is notable, plain, and evident that during the cycles of cosmic manifestation, we should pass through all the practical experiences of life. Undoubtedly, any essence that has passed through the 3,000 cycles of manifestation has also experimented 3,000 times the horrors of the abyss and therefore has become better and acquired self-consciousness. In this manner then, such essences have in fact full right to divine happiness. Unfortunately, they will not enjoy mastery, they did not acquire it and because of this do not have it. Already in previous talks, we have said that not all divine monads or virginal sparks are interested in mastery. Ostensibly, it is not the virginal sparks or divine monads that suffer, but the essence, the emanation of the mentioned sparks, what we have of soul in each of us. The pains that every essence passes through certainly comes to be well rewarded, because in exchange for such sufferings one acquires self-consciousness and happiness without limits. Mastery is different. No one would be able to achieve adepthood without the three factors of the revolution of consciousness, clearly expressed by our Lord the Christ: he who wants to come after me, deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. To deny oneself means dissolution of the lie. To take up one's cross, place it on our shoulders, means to work with sex yoga, with the Maithuna, with sexual magic. To follow the Christ is equivalent to sacrificing oneself for humanity, to give one's life so that others may live. The virginal sparks that do not achieve mastery during the 3,000 cycles of manifestation see the masters, the gods, in a similar manner as ants see the humanoids. Aztec traditions say that in the dawn of life, the gods gathered together there in Teotihuacan with the purpose of creating the sun. They affirm that they lit a great fire and then invited the god of the shell so that he would throw himself into that fire, but the former after 3 attempts felt great fear. The sacred songs solemnly affirm that the god Purulent, full of great valor, threw himself into the fire. On seeing this, the god of the shell imitated him, and then the whole assembly of gods silently waited to see what would happen. The legends say that within the live fire, Purulent surged forth, once more formed, transformed into the sun that today iflu.minate us. Minutes later, in that great fire, there surged forth the god of the shell, transformed into the moon that illuminates us at night. This means, dear friends, that if we want to transform ourselves into gods, into masters, we should imitate Purulent, incinerate the ego, the I, through the sexual fire. Only through the fire does Purulent, the myself, the self, die. Only through fire can we transform ourselves into terribly divine solar gods. Unfortunately, not all virginal sparks are interested in mastery. The majority, the millions of creatures that live on the face of the earth, prefer the path of the shell, the lunar path. Question: Venerable Master, at the beginning of this important dissertation, you told us that the essence on descending to the infernal worlds recapitulates animal-like, vegetable-like and mineral-like states. Could you be kind enough to explain the word recapitulate? Answer: with great pleasure I will answer the question of the gentleman. I want you, my friends, to comprehend well what the animal-like, vegetable-like and mineral-like abysmal recapitulation is. To descend involuting into the entrails of the buried earth is radically different from the evolving ascent on the surface of the earth. The animal-like recapitulation in the abyss is of a degenerative, involutive, descending, painful type. The vegetable-like recapitulation in the entrails of the earth is frightening. Those who pass through such processes appear more like shadows that slip away here, there, and everywhere in unutterable sufferings. The mineral-like, descending, involutive recapitulation in the entrails of the world in which we live is more bitter than death itself. The creatures fossilize themselves, they mineralize themselves and slowly disintegrate in torments impossible to explain with words. After the second death, the essence escapes, surges forth into the light of the sun, to recapitulate similar processes in an evolving, ascending, innocent and happy manner. There then, my friends, is the difference between involutive and evolving recapitulations. In any case, all the infinite involutive and evolving processes are of an exclusively lunar type and clearly unfold within the universal shell. Question: Master, you explained to us that with each cycle of existences, the elementals in the evolving process are awakening consciousness because they are processing themselves in more elevated octaves. This awakening of consciousness is perhaps the result of the sufferings of involution, or is it the result of the ascending process? Answer: Distinguished friend, it is good that you understand that the conscience suffers both in the evolving processes as well as the involutive processes. and that therefore on the basis of so many efforts and sacrifices it is progressively awakening. Millions of humanoids have their consciousness profoundly asleep, but on entering the abyss after the 108 existences of any cycle of manifestation, they inevitably awaken in evil and for evil. The interesting thing about this case is that they awaken anyway, although it is to justify their errors in the infernal worlds. Any enlightened clairvoyant is able to evince for himself the fact that innocent elementals are awake in a positive evolving sense. We see then two types of awakened consciousness: first, that of the innocent creatures of nature; secondly, that of involuting humanoids of the abyss. There exists a third type of awake people. I refer to the masters, to the gods, but we are not referring to them in this precise instant. Unquestionably, within the wheel of samsara, rotating along with it, there exist innocent awake consciences and also involuting abysmal creatures awake in evil and for evil. Question, Master, when you mention this matter of more elevated octaves in higher spirals, it confuses me, because I am used to thinking in octaves as they relate to the musical notes that are related with the transmutation of the serpentine fire. Can you clarify this? Answer, indubitably, the octaves of the shell are processed musically with the notes do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, in a gradual manner. If we carefully observe a spiral-like ladder, we will see a succession of curves that are each time higher, in such a manner that they are preceded by the lower ones. This formation, this distribution of curves in the form of any spiral, is sufficient as to comprehend that between octave and octave there also exist musical pauses. To each of these pauses there corresponds an abysmal descent. The 3,000 turns of the wheel resound incessantly as a unique whole within the rhythms of the Mahavan and of the Shotavan that sustain the universe firm on its march. Question, Master, why does the essence, being good, come to suffer in this world? Answer, my friends, the essence in itself is beyond good and evil. It is absolutely innocent, pure, and healthy. The essence suffers when it is imprisoned within the ego, but once this is dissolved, the essence stops suffering. Certainly the essences of the planet Earth remain imprisoned within the myself, due to a mistake of the gods. We have already said in past talks that certain sacred individuals, with the purpose of giving stability to the geological crust of our world, gave to humanity the abominable Kundartagwader organ. When such an organ disappeared, there remained the consequences within each person, and the latter crystallized, becoming the ego, a type of second nature within which the essence remained lamentably imprisoned. If that second nature did not exist, the essence would be free and happy. Unfortunately, it exists, as a result of the abominable Kundartagwader organ. Question, Master, it is said that we are children of God and that God is perfect. Why then does he send his children to suffer? Answer, with great pleasure I answer the question that comes from the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, the hour of knowing that all of us are children of the devil has arrived. I beg you, please, do not be frightened. We already know that the Lord Satan or Lucifer Prometheus is exclusively the shadow of our own internal divinity, projected within our very selves for our own good. It is evident that Lucifer is a great trainer that we carry within. Because of this, the sexual impulse is deep down Luciferic. The devil is not then, as we have already explained in past talks, that fabulous character that some dogmatic sects present to us, but the personal instructor of each one. It is then the Luciferic force that takes humanoids to triumph or failure, to degeneration or regeneration. From this point of view we can affirm that we are children of the devil, and this has been said by our Lord the Christ. Children of the devil you are, said the great Master, because if you were children of God, you would do God's works. It is necessary to make of ourselves children of God, and this is only possible with the three factors of the revolution of the consciousness, such as has been mentioned in this talk. A child of God is any person who arrives at resurrection. Reflect then on these words and do not presume to be saints nor virtuous persons, since all of you are children of the devil. Friends, God never sends us to suffer. We ourselves have created the sufferings with our own errors and through successive births. Question, Master, if we are children of the devil, who has more power over us, the devil or God? Answer, with great pleasure I will answer this question. We have said that the dragon is the shadow of the inner God of each of us. It is evident that each of us is a child of that shadow, of that dragon, and therefore, within the actual state in which we find ourselves, the dragon controls us absolutely. In this manner, from this relative and circumstantial point of view in which we find ourselves, the devil has more power over us than God himself. This does not mean that the devil is more powerful than God. When the immortal spark resurrects in us, when we transform ourselves into children of God, then everything will be different. In those days we will have overcome the dragon. Question, Master, what can you tell me of angels, bodhisattvas, and fallen masters? How are they related with the spiral of life? Answer, distinguished friends, there exists a supreme moment for all the millions of essences that populate the face of the earth. I want to refer in an emphatic manner to the instant in which for the first time we resolve to enter the solar path, certainly very different to the lunar path. The precise instant, the critical hour arrives for all the millions or trillions of virginal sparks in which they have to define themselves for the solar path, or for the lunar shell. When someone deliberately chooses the path of the razor's edge, their lot is cast. After this moment, there is no remedy. Those who achieve mastery and then want to look back to enter the lunar path will have to pass through frightening eternities in the infernal worlds until obtaining, after many billions or trillions of years, the annihilation of the superior existential bodies of the being and the destruction of the animal ego. This means that with a greater degree of consciousness, there is a greater degree of responsibility, and that he who adds wisdom, adds pain. Unquestionably, the fallen bodhisattvas, the fallen angels, the tenebrous angels, that is, the angelic or divine creatures submerged in the abyss, because of the transgression of wanting to take the lunar path after having plainly defined themselves for the solar path, will have to suffer millions of times more intensely than the common, run-of-the-mill persons. Once the disintegration of the vehicles and the ego has been obtained, they will begin anyway the evolving journey from the mineral kingdom, but with a golden embryo and therefore, with greater consciousness than the other elementals of nature until they reach the humanoid state. Once this objective has been achieved, since they possess the golden embryo, such beings will return to the solar path to once again create their superior existential bodies and to reconquer the angelic, or archangelic state, etc. that one day they rejected. Another is the fate of the virginal sparks that never chose the solar path. They are transformed into simple elementals of nature. They will submerge with their essence into the universal ocean of life, free of its movement. They are beings that preferred elemental life, that did not aspire to mastery, that always enjoyed being within the bosom of great nature, and that now, as sparks of the divinity, return to the latter forever.